there's nothing crazier than seeing the cash leave your account. And if you want to have like a little panic attack as a business owner, you look at that, you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? That's why you have like, you listen to podcasts like this to like, oh, okay, these other guys also go through this. They have a little mini panic attack. And then guess what? I got to do something about this now. All the badass clinician out there, welcome to another episode. Today we have a good friend, Kevin Vandi. He is the owner of Competitive Edge Physical Therapy and the host of the Business of Biomechanics Podcast. Kevin's doing great thing out in California. I met him in our pretty much business group, and he did it. He started a franchise, and I need to get him on so that way he can kind of pave the way to all the listener who has this aspiration of starting their own clinic and potentially have the ability to franchise down the road. So if anyone who are listening, like myself, are obsessed with McDonald's and have watched the founders to like 800 times, you're obsessed with franchise model, like that's me. So I'm just super grateful and thankful to have Kevin on our podcast. He's super busy, guys. Like you can't imagine. I have to book this guy out for the past 3 months. So Kevin, thank you for making the time.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm humbled to be here, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
So let's get into it, man. A little bit background, and then from there, let's move on to how you build your business.
So I started Competitive Edge back in 2015. I'd been a PT at that point for like 8 years. I'd managed another practice. But I saw there was a future in using data and technology in PT. And I saw that from Chris Powers down in LA, got to see his lab, and man, it blew my mind. So I came back, told my wife we're opening a biomechanics lab. She just kind of shrugged her shoulders, said, sure. 2015, we opened, went all in, bought all the equipment. And since then, I've learned a lot about marketing and sales and made a lot of mistakes, spent a lot of money learning the process. And since then have grown year on year and now have to the point where we see that there's a future in this. And there's a ton of interest out there for PTs that want to practice differently and want to be part of a model that's in the future and not just, old school PT, but actually using tech and analysis for sport and running. And so we're getting interest, and we want to take our model and hopefully spread it across the world. So it's been a fun journey, and I've got to bring my kids along with me. I have 5 kids, big, crazy Italian family, and it's been a fun ride.
Man, I love it. So let's talk about the model real quick. So you work with runners, and then you help them through whatever the pain injuries by analyzing their mechanics, help them fix their mechanics, optimize their mechanics, so that way they can keep on running, correct?
Yeah, so we've taken running analysis and taken it from, using an iPad or Coach's Eye or, some sort of 2D analysis system. And we've basically made it as much data as you can imagine. So we have an instrumented treadmill that has a force deck in it. So you can see landing pressure, stride width, stride length, cadence, landing forces. We have 3D motion sensors called IMUs. So you can see things like knee flexion angle or hip internal rotation. And then we have muscle EMGs, you can track firing patterns. And finally, force splits, you can do jump analysis, cutting analysis. Basically imagine, shooting like a Madden video game, how they put all the sensors on an athlete. We get to do that in our lab with, similar but different technology. So athletes love it, runners love it. And from there, really the key is the biofeedback you can give someone in a follow-up visit. Being able to take, am I actually turning on my glute? How much landing forces do I have during my running gait? What is my knee angle when I'm taking a 90-degree cut at full speed? Those are things we can actually look at. And I tell you, clients absolutely love it. They just think it's the coolest thing to be able to see an avatar, a skeleton of their body that you can manipulate from every angle. It takes PT from like boring and something that people don't really understand, and it gives them a visual. Seeing is believing. And they're able to see themselves move, and it totally changes the experience.
Dude, that's so cool. Like, I always say that my clinic's a lab. Like, you have a legit lab. Like, I'm nowhere. The equipment that we have, like, is nowhere as cool as what you have. So let's backtrack. You went to this lab, and you're like, cool, we're going to open this thing right now. So the first thing, I just went back to my journey because I didn't have any money. I can only afford, like, a portable table. So how do you talk through that? Because it sounds expensive, and how do you rationalize it? Do you take out loan? How do you go about it?
Yeah, great question. At that point, I knew I wanted to have a lab, and I'm more of the mindset, if I'm going to do it, I might as well go all in. Like at that point, I did want to just get all the equipment. I know some people that build their labs piece by piece. totally legit strategy, probably financially less risky. So that's definitely something you could do. But for me, I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go big. So I didn't have the money either. We had just, my wife was pregnant. We're about to have our fourth
That's why
kid.
you have 5 kids, right? You're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go big.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
So we're about to have our fourth kid. Like it was imminent, like in the next couple of months. It was definitely financially not the time to open a practice. However, it just, the cards fell in. It just seemed like this is what we should do. So I basically had to talk to a bunch of different banks to try to get a small business loan. SBA loans, I think you got to put down like 20%, which the cost of the equipment then was $100,000, give or take, maybe a little bit more. And I couldn't put up $20,000, so that didn't work. So I found a company through trial and error that focused on financing healthcare only businesses. And so because they knew that medicine was a safe bet and that they're recession proof and they typically have good ROI, they were able to give me a loan for the equipment then when everybody else said no. So I had to be persistent. And so I took out a $150,000 business loan. I spent definitely, a good portion of my own money of what I had to finance part of that. And then kind of hit the ground running. It was make it or break it. You had to make it work because you had a loan to pay back.
Was the term super high when it comes to that? Like,
it wasn't bad. I think,
right, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it was like 7 back then. It was 2015. It was like 7%. Yeah. But it was a situation where you had to pay like a percentage of interest for like a year, and then you could pay it all off. So there was a grace period where the company made sure they got their money. I had the liquidity, meaning I could have access to the cash. We both got what we wanted. I mean, I think if looking back, you maybe, OPM, maybe try to use other people's money, talk to family, friends, maybe as a higher value solution than getting a loan. But I did what I needed to do. I found the money, and I didn't necessarily wanted to ask family. That's maybe a pride thing I got to work through.
No, dude, I'm the same way. Like, I don't want to touch people's money because, especially when it comes to family, it's awkward. I wouldn't hire family members. I mean, that's just how awkward it could be when you have to like fire them and you like deal with people's money. Forget it, because then they could be like, "Oh, by the way, I need that money back now," and then that wouldn't work. What I appreciate, man, is your willingness to just find solution to get your goal, right? And I think that's something I can always use that kind of reminder, right? If you want something, there's always a solution out there as long as you look hard. What?
Yeah, I think there's, I've done it in the past, and I think we all have a tendency to say, well, option 1 didn't work, option 2 didn't work, this must be a bad decision. And I think we're too quick to forego an idea that, conceptually and on paper we can make work. If it can work on paper, it can work. You just have to be tenacious about finding things that can work for you versus against you. And you got to be willing to have the door slammed in your face a bunch. I went to multiple banks. So I wrote a business plan because I thought that's what I needed to do. So I wrote like a 40-page business plan.
Oh my God.
I went into these.
Mine was 25.
Yours small business, like financial experts, and they basically would look at this business plan. They'd honestly laugh, and they were like, "So this is your plan?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "It's not going to work. It's not going to work. This is dumb. Why don't you just work with doctors? Why don't you just take insurance? This isn't going to work." Bro, I heard that like 15 times.
Why?
Until I finally found this company.
Work. What were some objections?
Well, what they knew is what their experience was in. That in physical therapy, chiropractic, massage, you get your referrals from doctors. And that is what they deemed to be safe. That was a predictable generation of leads was through doctors. When I was like, I'm not going to go to doctors and I'm not going to talk to them, like, well, how are you going to get clients? I was like, well, digital ad. I didn't know that at the time. By the way, I didn't know anything about marketing. So I was like, my business plan literally said, talk to running coaches. That didn't work. It worked a little bit, but not as much as I wanted it to. So they were right. My marketing plan was terrible, but I think they even couldn't see that charging cash was even a viable solution. My financial modeling was like very aspirational, the hockey stick approach to making money. So they probably looked at that and thought I was naive, and I was, but I needed someone that believed in me, right? And this company did.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Just because, and for you guys that are listening out there and you've been following this podcast, everyone that I have on will say the exact same thing. People say that this model would not work, right? And the reason why this podcast exists is that, hey, this shit does work. Like it works very well if you know how to do it. But again, it's a lot of hard work up front. Look what Kevin has to do to just even, just get the cash flow going. So I want to go back a little bit. Where were you, like, I guess, emotionally during that time when you were looking to take this on, right? Because you say you were managing another clinic. You've been in it for 8 years. Like, was it bad? Was it that bad that you have to go take all this risk? Or is this idea, it's just something so cool that it speaks to you as your new calling that you're like, you know what, I want to go through that? Because for me, I was in a bad place and I need to get out. And the vehicle to get out was building my own clinic. What was the vehicle for you?
That's a great question. My wife and I actually just talked about this the other night. We were lucky enough to have a date night away from the kids for a little bit. And my mother-in-law came over. But anyway, we're at the bar. We're talking about the journey of, where we are to where we are now. And where I was, I'll tell you, I had a cush job. I was making 6 figures. I had, like 3 or 4 weeks paid time off. I had full medical paid. I liked the people I worked with. It was a successful clinic. I was managing. Like I pretty much had a cush job that was wonderful. And like I said, my wife was pregnant with our 4th kid. We didn't necessarily have the financial means. Opening a business was probably the wrong idea. Like if you just looked at the facts, it was probably a wrong idea. But being an entrepreneur, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who takes risks by definition. And so I was leaving something that was awesome. I was leaving a great situation because I knew years down the road there was something better. Ultimately, I wanted control over my time. I wanted to be with my children. I wanted to be with my family. That was the most important thing to me, that I wanted to be able to go to the gym when I want to go to the gym. I wanted to be able to live the life I want. And if I want to put in 80 hours, I want to put in 80 hours for me. I don't want to put in 80 hours for somebody else. And I was a high producer. I'm no matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it 100%. Like that's just the integrity side of things, that if you're going to put your name behind, do it. So no matter where I was going to work hard. I'd just rather do it for myself. So honestly, it was sort of a understood reckless decision. I was upsetting the apple cart almost on purpose, knowing that the future. Listen, I read a lot of business books. I heard these entrepreneurial stories, and I wanted that experience. I wanted to be able to go through the grind and go through the difficulties. And it had to be an honest conversation with my wife about, hey, we're about to do this. I'm going to be a ghost for like 12 months, but why don't we do it now when my kids are so young and they're not going to remember? So that when they're 10 or 12 and they need dad to be a coach and they need to be on the sidelines, or they need me to be a mentor, then I can be that for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you have a good cash cushion, a good runway for you to take this risk? I assume you calculate like you have X amount of money in the bank to sustain for X amount a month, because otherwise, it would be very challenging.
So it was a situation where it was really fascinating. So at the business I was at, I was talking to my boss and I was in line to buy his practice. We had been in discussions for a year. They were progressing along well. So, but it ultimately didn't go anywhere, right? So I was transparent. I said, hey, listen, I'm starting this other business. I just wanted you to know, like, out of total, transparency, I'm going to be leaving this practice because I don't want to open this. I didn't see a single client until I talked with my boss. Again, everything above board. But he basically said, no, like, I want you to stay. I think you can open that business and you can run this one. Like, I think you could do it. So actually I stayed working part-time. I did like 20 to 30 hours at that clinic, which paid for our living expenses, basically, no more, covered our living expenses. And I did 30 to 40 hours at Competitive Edge for the first 10 months.
I love this so much. And the reason I love it is because you wanted time freedom. Most people just want financial freedom. And then once again, you have a cushion job and you're like, no, that's not enough. I actually want time freedom because I'm going all in on them kids. So I'm going to have 5. And you're like, I want to be there all the time. And I need to put in the hard work right now. And I think this is where most people fail, is that they think that by opening up your business, you're just going to, whatever you didn't do, whatever you hate doing at your current job, guess what? You're going to do more, way more of it until you scale your way out. So you don't have to do it. Like the things that I hate was reaching out to clients, past patient, ask them how they're doing, this and that. I didn't like that because I was treating patient. I didn't have time to do it. I'd have to do notes. Guess what? As soon as I open my practice, that's all I do. I call people all the time and do notes and do all of that. So it's like you have to stay in a really really dark place doing stuff that you don't like for like, I don't know, like 2 years until you can like, okay, now I have a little freedom. Now I have time freedom. Now I have financial freedom. But to get it and to get that instant gratification, it's not a thing. And I love when you define the definition of entrepreneur, because people think that you're an entrepreneur by going to freaking yard sale because Gary Vee does it and he flipped it on eBay and you make 20% profit. That's not entrepreneurship. That's just you bullshitting your way into making a little bit more money. Like there's no risk on that. The risk is that you don't sell anything on eBay.
My understanding of what opening a business is going to be like, I looked at my boss and with a lot of naivety, I said, I could do a better job than that. Like I would do it this way. I would change this. I'd have this equipment and I'd do these things and it would just be amazing. And I realized once I opened my business, that's absolutely useless unless you know how to market your business. Mm-hmm. That's the piece I didn't know. That's the piece I had to spend a ton of money to learn how to do. And I'm thankful that I did, because that completely transformed from this. Basically, you're right, me being my own employee, working 30, 40, 50 hours a week, treating clients, and then running a business as basically a business of one where I was the employee and I had a terrible boss myself.
No, so I say it all the time.
So I had to learn at that point how to market my way out of a bad situation. Right, we lost money for the first 3 months. I thought we were going to run out of money. We had like 12 grand in the bank. We lost money month on month because couldn't get clients in. I didn't know how to market. I thought that having a fancy website was the way to do it. That wasn't the way to do it. And so honestly, I took Paul's accelerator course, and that's what taught me about marketing. Mm-hmm. And I implemented like a fiend. I literally probably didn't sleep like a couple hours a night for like a whole week. Totally changed my website, put up Google ads. I did everything. Like how people say I take a course and I didn't do anything. I did everything. Mm-hmm. And it completely changed the business. But you're right. I didn't like any portion of it.
Yeah, you did because it was necessary. You have to do it. And I love this point you just made too, because as an employee, right, it's easy for you to say, I would do this, I would do that. Oh, that's not done well. This and that's not done well. It's easy for you to say because you're playing with house money. It's like you have nothing at stake. Like I had one employee who would just be like, oh, I would do this differently. I would do this. I would do that. And then as soon as we parted ways, guess what? He's at another corporate job. He's not doing anything that he's saying he was going to do, right? If you can do it better, go do it better. Like, and that's the whole point, right? I'm not saying what I have is right. You're not saying what you have is right. But if you think you can do better, please go do better, because it's better for the field.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to do it. So let's fast forward. Obviously, you're doing really well. You scale your practice to 7-figure. You're not treating anymore. You have that time freedom you're seeking. But now that you have that time freedom, it gives you more time to take on more tasks. Now let's talk about this new task of creating a franchise. So how do you come up with that? Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. So I think the personality of an entrepreneur, like when you start your own business, although it's difficult at the beginning and there's a lot of struggles and you have to learn a lot and lose money and sleep and time, and there's a certain excitement to it, I guess, of building something that you feel passionate about and something that, contains your core values, something that the market needs, right, and wants, and you can make a difference in the world. I think when you have that belief in yourself and belief in your product and what you do, then the hard work and the time you're going to put in, it's an excitement, right? I think we heard at the event we're at the difference between like, oh, I have to do this. I have to market my business. I have to write these blog posts. I have to make these sales calls. It's a different mindset that's saying, I'm lucky enough that I get to, right? Mm-hmm. I get to have, amazing staff. I get to be a mentor. I get to be a dad to my kids. Those all take a lot of hard work, but it's a privilege to be able to do it. And so when you realize, like we had at Competitive Edge, that we have a very unique model, and the more I go to these conferences and talk to people, the more I realize how unique it actually is. Everybody says their business is unique, and I get that. But from a standpoint of, what we're doing with technology and what we're doing with the clients we see, and even the mindset of helping people overcome obstacles that keep them from their goals, all that included is different. There might be other people out there doing that, but we feel like we have a way to do it that can be reproduced. And that's where some people around me was like, hey, this is a cool idea. Have you ever thought of opening in San Diego? Have you ever thought of opening in Florida? Have you ever thought? And I was like, actually, I really haven't. Like I was just thinking about making this the best it can be, or opening a second location here. And so I ended up talking to some consulting groups, and finding someone that's like, hey, let's do an analysis of your business. Like, is this actually franchisable, right? Is this something that could actually fit a franchise model? So, you meet for like 3 or 4 hours. You talk through all the details of your business, the finances, your marketing strategy, your place in the market, why you're different. And they basically assess, are you actually different, or are you just, filled with hot air? Like, is this actually a legit thing? And the company came back and said, your financial modeling, what you're doing, your uniqueness in the market, the fact that people want data. There's other physical therapy businesses that are franchising. You're actually coming into the market at exactly the right time, because everybody, VCs, private equity, is investing in healthcare. Like you're at a really good spot. Mm-hmm. And that was the time when I said this could actually happen. Like there's outside people, consultants, besides my dreams and my hopes that, could be faulty and might be built off poor data. There's outside people telling me, no, this could be real. You could have something pretty cool here.
That's awesome. And
so it really came from other consultants, other people, business coaches, helping me get objective realities to my fanciful ideas.
But this is one thing I didn't mention to the listener, guys. Kevin is 100% cash, so he has scale to 7-figure just doing cash, right? He's a unicorn. That's literally what it is. Like, if you find someone else that's scaled to 7-figure in cash and doing this, let me know, because I haven't. He's the first one. So that's just to kind of just to speak volume with the kind of work he's doing over there. And how does that make you feel, dude? To know that like what you actually have has legs, have good system behind it, and it's not something that you just like, oh shoot, like like for me, I have this moment sometimes, like last year, where I'm like, oh man, I have a pretty good business. I was like, I guess I am a business owner.
Yeah, I think you're always going to find someone that's doing better than you, and you're always going to find people that are chasing you, basically. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that you're going to find yourself at the absolute top of where you're trying to get to. But that's what creates the game. That's what creates the fun, is you have other people you can learn from. There's plenty of people that have done, revenue-wise, way more than I'm doing, that I look up to, that I want to learn from. They have strategies I haven't even thought of yet. They're playing a different game. There's always something to learn. I think that's what makes the game of business fun, is that you're never going to exhaust it.
And I love it.
Feel like you know everything, you should probably give up. Yeah, that's kind of the end.
I have this question. So as you realize that you have a franchise model, that what you're doing is currently working, how do you go back and extract all the framework to figure out like, hey, what I'm actually doing is working, and how do you document all of that? How long was that? And where do you go back? Right? That's another question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So part of the franchise process, you can choose to do it yourself, but it's highly not advised. So you have a consulting group that helps you basically extract out of your business the magic, like what makes it a successful process to the best of your ability at that time. It's going to change to some degree, and you're going to have to update it year on year. But it's like hours of questions. Tell me about this. Tell me about what you do for marketing. Tell me about how you train your staff. Tell me about the equipment. Where did you buy it? How long did it take you to implement it? What does your training look like? So you basically need someone that's outside your organization, would be my recommendation, to do it for you. Because when you're in the organization, it's really hard to see the details, because you're in it all the time. Whereas if someone that's outside your organization, never seen it before, if you can explain it to them and you can explain it clearly, then you have something that you can actually transfer into somebody else's system, somebody else's brain. So that consultant process is important. And then honestly, ask your staff, like go back and be like, hey, what is this process? What does this look like? Is it as buttoned up as it needs to be? And it's not. I mean, you're going to have to continue to refine it. But if you've grown a successful practice and you have systems in place, you're already ahead of most of the crowd. They won't take the time to create the systems. They'll just kind of wing it. So yeah, I would say work with a consultant, or just have someone hire someone to walk around with you. What do you do on a daily basis? Tell me about your job description. What does your scorecard look like? What are you accountable for? And do that with the person in sales, marketing, operations. You could probably create a decent template that way. But a consulting firm can do it they've done it before and they're probably better at doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure they do like a time study on you just to make sure like, hey, what are you doing with your time, et cetera, right?
They talk about even give me the history of the company. How'd you come up with your core values? Like, tell me about your target market. Tell me about the client experience. What's really important that you want your other franchisees to know? Like what DNA of this business has to be transferred to the next one? What doesn't need to be transferred? So they're very specific about how they go through the process. And even my other recommendation is, even if you don't want to franchise your business, just think that you are, because it's going to help you document your processes and what you do in your systems way better than it's currently doing. And you're going to find holes, and you're going to find multiple people doing the same job or nobody doing a job that's essential. And we're going to do it for annual planning this year. We're going to go through all of our processes again, even though we've done it to some degree in the past, and go through and say, okay, who's responsible for this? What's the outcome? What's the KPI? What are we actually tracking? Are too many people responsible for too many things? So that process in and of itself is valuable to do, no matter the size of your company.
And I think for people who are listening, like myself, you figure, I'll document it, I'll spend the time, and then that's it. No, guys, this is not like the E-Myth where you like, oh yeah, I'm just going to document. It's turnkey. People come in. People got to do what they're supposed to do because, it's a fantasy world where people are very performing at a high level, need no accountability. That's not it. Like, you always need to update it. The scorecard thing has been huge. I mean, as soon as we implemented scorecard system in our clinic, like, people are just working way better and in a way where they have more support, right? Because most of the time, I'm just really good at throwing stuff against the wall. And like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? And I didn't realize that there were like 10 other things I asked them to do last week. So it's probably the best thing for me to do when it comes to like having scorecard, having those kind of system, and understand that like things need to be updated. Like I'm reworking our core values. We have 10. Now I'm trying to put it down to 3, right? Because 10's too much. No one remembers it. So I know that you're looking to franchise, and I just had this spiel the other day, talking about how VC are taking over healthcare, and that's why we don't have the profession. The profession does not belong to PTs anymore. So how do you safeguard it? Because you really care about our profession. That's why you're doing this, right? And the VC I'm referring to, these are VC that are investing into big corporate PT. They're in network and all of that stuff. I think when it comes to the cash model, it's going to be hard for them just to park their money and do nothing, because the barrier of entry is very low when it comes to in-network model. So like, how do you pick which one you work with? And another thing is like what is really the true calling when it comes to like growing competitive edge franchise?
For us, the way we've put together the model in our ideal situation is we'd want a PT to run the location, to be the franchisee. For sure, the level of passion, the commitment to the idea that movement is medicine, that having a tech-based practice is going to be the future of analyzing sport, running, that is such a key piece to what we're doing. But more so, when you're removed from the day-to-day, when you're removed from seeing the wins that you get in clients' lives, the goals they achieve, you get to see how hard they have to work to get to those goals. When you're just an investor, that becomes pretty hard. Not that we'll never have investors, but they have to have the right passion. If they don't fit our core values, it's a no-go. If a franchisee doesn't fit our core values, it ain't going to happen, right? That they have to be the right fit, and they have to believe that the client is the center of the world, that this is what this business stands for, right? Is to make people believe that the limits they put in themselves or the goals they had are probably too shallow, and they can achieve way more than they think they can with the right system, the people, the support, and even some objective data to know that they're on the right track, right? So we're looking for people that believe in that process and believe in the future of physical therapy and what it looks like, don't want to have the outdated model, want to be able to invest, personally in each individual client, want to create a great experience, have a client for life versus just a transient healthcare transaction. And so if there's people that want to invest in that type of model that still will give the power to the PTs that run it, then great. But if they don't, then it's probably not a good fit, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, we think we've stumbled upon something that's great for the profession. A system that avoids PT burnout, treats less clients, gives the power back to the clients to make a decision about how they focus their healthcare. There's so many parts to it that we could talk about, but those are the big keys that I think it's great for the profession. I think it's great for clients, And we would ultimately like a PT to be the person to come in and be the franchisee. And it incentivizes PTs to be business owners, right? To be an entrepreneur, to take care of yourself and actually work for yourself than, a corporation that makes you see 18 clients a day and you could barely get your notes done and your thumbs hurt and you're tired and the level of care you're giving. Now, no fault of your own, just the system that there's no way you're going to keep up with that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, if you pitched me this like 4 years ago, I would be like, where do I sign? Right? I mean, like seriously, like again, I can speak for myself. I did not want to be a business owner. I just want to like kind of cruise like what you were doing. I want to like climb up the corporate ladder, make 6-figure, live a comfortable life, have weekends off, help patient, and that was it, right? I mean, like I kind of shifted into this just because it's out of necessity, right? For survival for me at that point. So if this vehicle was available to me in the past where I didn't have to do that much work and I get to have that financial freedom, time freedom, and then, invest more time into a relationship with my wife and, future kids, like that would be a huge thing. But none of this exists like back then. Like the model was you work for somebody or you open a clinic and then you work till you're 40 years in and you sell your clinic at whatever 2x maybe if you're lucky.
Yeah, if the business isn't declining. And the other thing is that I think is important is in the franchise world, like the franchisee is the business owner. Like they own that location. But the coolest part for me is that I get to act almost like I'm an investor in them. I get to be more of the mentor relationship. And so being able to take the lessons I've learned from, my mentors, people that have helped me get to where I'm going, and instill that knowledge in somebody else, whether it be about, hiring, recruitment, finance, operations, whatever it is, the most exciting part for me is to be able to be on that ride with other people and help them create successful businesses. Because if they're not successful, then our company isn't successful. And I couldn't think of anything more fun than helping other people get to the place where they get to either be with their families, live their dreams, treat 40 hours a week, if it's whatever they want, but to be able to help them achieve that as a mentor, not doing it for them, but doing it with them, I think is super exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Like my role now that I don't treat as much, I spend more time with my people, coaching them, mentoring them, helping them with their like personal success more so now. Like I enjoy this part so much more because now I realize that the hour of my time I spend with my team have huge impact in order to help more people. And what I'm trying to do is pretty much create a position that I wish I had so I didn't have to go and start a business. If I was treat X, Y, and Z a certain way, then I wouldn't even venture out, right? Are there going to be frustration at some point? Yes, obviously, this is real world. Like, nothing is ideal, but as long as we can move through it together and have someone that willing to hear them out, I think that's the main key. And I think that's a blessing on my end. And I count it that, like you said before, like I get to hang out with people who I selectively bring on to be part of my team because that's what I do when I hire people. And it's just been incredible doing this whole thing. Now, let's talk about how you scale your business, man. So we all have a different, I guess, growth benchmark, right? For you, right? At which point of your business on your journey to 7-figure, where do you feel like, all right, it's kind of slowed down, it's getting a little stuck, I have to go in there, fix something because again, your system that you have to get from 0 to 250, it's not going to be the same system that get you from 250 to half and then half to 750, etc. So I want to hear your experience on that.
I think there are natural inflection points in the growth of a business that everybody will cross over, and that they might be, maybe a 10% wiggle room here and there, but they'll happen about at the same times, right? So you have an entrepreneur that starts a PT business and they're like, I got this. I want to be the best PT in the world. And I'm going to, treat till my hands kill me because, now I'm working for myself. And you can do that. And I think we all get to the point where we're treating like 45, 50 hours a week. You're just, you don't know or want to hire another person until you're almost forced to. And so that's the first step, right? That'll get you probably, I don't know, a couple 100,000 revenue wise, maybe 300 if, somewhere around there. If depending on your price point. Back then I started at like 130 an hour. So it was a lot of clients.
I started at 80, dude. But then again, I'm not in California.
Yeah. So, so you'll hit that first inflection point. We're going to have to bring on someone to help you run the business. You're going to need an admin assistant, someone, head of house, someone to, make the calls, help with scheduling, handle all the details that, we're not very good at for most entrepreneurs. I definitely wasn't. So that's going to be your first hire. Then you're going to bring on a PT. That'll probably get you up to that, 500, 600,000, somewhere around there. And then it's a choice, I think, right? At that point, do you want to continue to treat? And you can have a fairly profitable business at that point because you're the practitioner. I mean, do you want to stay there, which is totally a choice, and you can and have a pretty comfortable life, or do you want to get to the point where you can have other opportunities, whether it be, expanding to a second location, bringing in more people so you have time, franchise, whatever it is. I mean, that's the entrepreneur's choice. But right up around 600,000, $750,000, you're going to have to bring in more people. And there's no other option. And you're gonna have to bring in people that first are heal your deficiencies, basically, right? So you can still do the things you're good at, and you can keep that role for quite some time. But you're going to have to hire people that are smarter than you and better at you than things that you struggle with. So marketing, sales, operations, whatever it is, finance for some people, right? You're going to need help, but it means you're going to have to reinvest back in your business. And that means you're going to have some liquid capital. You're going to have some cash until those new people can get up and running and actually start, fulfilling in that role 6 months, a year-ish, right? And then at that point, you can take the next leap up. So I think there are those natural inflection points, but ultimately, you're going to need people, you're going to need cash, you're going to need systems, and you're going to have to execute. Without those things, you won't make it past those inflection points.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I was just talking to a friend who reached out. He's a solo practitioner, doing pretty well. And he's just like, I'm just burned out, man. He's like, what do you do when you feel burned out? I was like, oh yeah, I just hire people, dude. I was like, the first step is admit that whatever I think I'm good at, I'm not really that good at. But there's a couple tasks I'm really, really good at, and then some I'm just okay, but I think I'm good at. And I just realized, if I hire someone and they do this full time, they will do it way better than me. So that's what I just started doing. And then I'm like, I'm not as burnt out anymore because I'm not wearing 8 different hats. Now I'm wearing 4, right? And then it's just like, all right, let's just do this. And obviously, to scale a business, take capital, like you said. And even to build your own brick and mortar, take capital. Just like you heard Kevin, he took out the loan right off the bat. I took out the SBA loan to build out my facility, right? There's nothing crazier than seeing the cash leave your account. And if you want to have like a little panic attack as a business owner, you look at that, you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Right. And then that's why you have you listen to podcasts like this to oh, okay, these other guys also go through this. They have a little mini panic attack. And then guess what? They kind of breeze through it. I give myself 24 hours to kind of freak out. And then after I was like, all right, good. I got to do something about this now. I love what you said that you hire, pretty much you hire your way out the inflection point and talk about hiring, right? Because hiring is not the end of that, right? It's just solving a problem that you don't have people, but then those people are so new and what you're doing is so unique. How do you onboard them? How do you train them with your system? And how do you get them to buy into what you do?
Yeah, great question. I think finding the right person is the key first step. So most people say they're going to hire and they hire temporarily, they hire when they need something, almost out of desperation. And we've definitely been there, definitely done it, guilty. But when you can actually start recruiting, when you can actually start looking for a position before it's necessary or before you have the desperation, you have the time to find the right person. And so we've done it, continue to do it, is go through and create scorecards for each position, create what the role actually is, right? What their day-to-day is going to look like. What are the key activities they have to focus on? And then figure out what problem you actually have, and then find the person that's had some success at solving that problem. Once you know that's going to be, 50% of the issue is making sure you get the person that's done it before and can help your business. Second, what you do on the back end, the first initial part is all about building them into the vision, the mission. You should have a vision and mission. And it changes, but, continue to refine it at annual planning meetings. But they need to know where you're going, need to know what the target is, what the company stands for, and what's going to get them hired, what's going to get them fired, and what are the values of the company. But from there, building out training systems for each role. And we still got to, do some more in different positions for us, but we've done at least to some degree all the positions of there's what the initial 30 days looks like. Here's what we want you to do by 6 days for PTs, for instance, right? Got to learn the tech and be able to do a running gait in 6 weeks, right? You got to be able to do a return to sport test in 3 months. So that's done by my clinical director. They handle all that. And then each individual department head will train the staff inside their department. So sales will train sales, marketing will train marketing. But the key is to, at least have a plan in place that you have, your first week, 7 day, 30 day, 60 day, 6 months, reviews, check-ins, and define processes.
So for those who are like stuck right now, let's say $500,000 mark, they're doing well. Their own schedule is full. They have a PT. Their schedule is full. They have a part-time front desk. How do you tell that business owner to say, hey, which role do I need to hire? Because most people would say, I'm just going to hire someone full-time, have them do media, have them do marketing, have them write email, have them follow up with people. Like, how do you identify that? Because there's so many jobs that you can do, right? What did you do to identify which role you need?
Honestly, it was at a CEO meeting where you just laid out an org chart and said, let's actually put up, the operations, finance, sales, marketing. Let's put people in those positions of your current staff. And all of a sudden you see that multiple people or the same person is sitting in multiple seats or multiple people are sitting in the same seat. And then you start to realize where the deficiency in the business is. And almost always it's the fact that I have held on too tightly to specific things that I should just let go of and hire people that are better at me than doing it. Right. I think that's the key piece, is recognizing where, like, you keep things close to the chest because you feel like, oh, it's going to be too long to train. And that nobody's going to be able to do this as well as I can. All ridiculous. Someone can definitely do it better than you can. But I think you had to figure out what the business needed at the time, right? Where's the hole? Where are too many people overwhelmed? Where is it stuck? Like, are you stuck because of marketing? Most of the time it is. Are you stuck because you have too many leads, but then you can't follow up with them? Like, do an analysis of where the leaks in the bucket are. And then you'll actually find out what the problem is. And then you find the skill set of the person that can fix that problem.
Yeah. Isn't it such big ego, man, for you and I to say like, oh, I can do this really well. I'm like really, really the best at. And then, oh, it's going to take them to train X, Y, and Z months for them to get to where I am. Like, to me, the more I look back, it's just like, wow, that's just me feeding my ego. Like, make me like feel like I'm really that guy. When I'm just like, and then as soon as I realize that, that's when my business grow, because I can say, you know what? If I'm really that good, like I say I am, I should be able to train people very quickly. That means I understand it so well. I can make it as simple as possible, make it extremely digestible, that I can feed it to the right person, and that person will be like, I got it. And then from there, add on to it. And as soon as I made that realization, I was like, oh my God, this is where you need to be as a business owner, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. The question is always, how do we make this as simple as it can be without being too simple? Like, without dumbing it down so much that it loses its value. And when you have someone that's made something so complex, either out of ineptitude, they don't know what they're doing, or they want to seem more important because they've made it so difficult, both of those situations are, we have blind spots where we don't recognize that we're doing it, right? And you need almost an outside person to come in and say, why are you still doing that? Yeah. Like, you're not very good at that. Go find someone that can help you with that. Or actually what you're really good at is you're really good at mentorship, and you're really good at vision, and you're really good at casting of where this company needs to head to. How fast can we get you only in that seat? Who do we have to hire to free up your time to be there? Because that's where your real value is. And this is a lifelong journey for all of us, myself included, where you start to realize, like, what have I been uniquely created to do in this world? What am I good at? What do I love doing? Where do I feel like I come alive? Where do I feel like I can have value? That's where you need to sit, whatever that role is. And if you're doing a job that you hate and it's drudgery and you don't want to do it, but feel like you have to, just stop. Bring someone in that can do it for you, because that's not where your passion lies. And that's not likely where you can, give a gift back to other people. Yeah.
When people ask me to help with their business, I always go look, A, their org chart, who they have. B, when they ask, like, who should I hire first, I say, what do you hate to do so much? That, like, what are the tasks that you rather just like put like lime juice in your eyes instead of doing? Like, that's the job you get off your plate. And, like all the job that I got off my plates now is the best. There's time when people ask me, I'm just like, I honestly don't know. Like the other day I was like hanging around the front, just catching up. And like one of my staff has to run to the bathroom and I was covering. And like someone like go to check out. I was like, I have no idea where to charge the card. I don't know where anything is, which is great. I'm just like, oh, this is really good. Cause now I actually have created a business that can sustain without me. And, you know, like I took a month off to go to Europe this past summer and it was great because things were running around. You know, like things would still do well. Like, yeah, were there things that when I come back that we need to fix? Of course, it's business. It's like pretty much asking your spouse to see if there's something else you can work on. There's always something.
You know? There's a long list there, Natty.
Yeah. So before we let you go, man, obviously people who are listening to this, they're probably super intrigued about your franchise opportunities, and perhaps just working with you, picking your brain on how to even actually create a lab as in their own clinic. Where can people find you? Where can they get more information? And how can they get connected?
Happy to talk to anybody, honestly. This is exciting for me. I'm passionate about what I do in the biomechanics world, the business world, franchising. So, any questions you have, we all need to pay it forward and give back for anybody that's listening, and be happy to give you information, have a call. But you can reach me on Instagram. It's Kevin Vandi PT. Shoot me a DM there. Kevin@compedgept.com. You can also check out the podcast, The Business of Biomechanics. And there's plenty of information about, our business and about bringing other entrepreneurs from around the world that are doing this game of business and biomechanics, some fun stories. But yeah, just reach out there. Again, super open, happy to talk about anything. And I just encourage anybody that's listening to this podcast from Natty's, take his model and what he's done, and he's had a ton of success. And, you can do it. If you just think you can't, then, let go of those self-limiting beliefs and take the jump. And being an entrepreneur is, one of the funnest things in the world. So give it a shot.
Kevin, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And just to echo to what you were just saying, if you think you can't, find someone who can do it and then just ask them, or pay them for their time. Even better, because people would appreciate that. You and I have paid countless of money to get some coaching, yes. to get to where we are.
Yes.
And there's no accident why successful people get to where they are, because they invest in their own growth. And that's pretty much it. It's just showing up, invest in yourself. And next thing you know, you'll be like Kevin. You'll be on his podcast. You can buy his franchise and you just be crushing in California like him, eating In-N-Out Burger.